Australia made the Ute cool, America made it big. But who really made it better? This isn't just a car debate, it's a clash of culture, history, horsepower, and a whole lot of burnt rubber. Because in one corner, you've got Holden and Ford, battling it out with V8-powered traybacks, bred in Aussie factories and baptized on burnout pads. And in the other, Ram, Silverado, F-150, American muscle trucks the size of small homes, rolling into town like they own the place. So let's wind it back and fire it up. This is the ultimate Ute showdown. The Aussie Ute didn't just show up in a marketing pitch, it was born out of necessity. Back in 1934, a farmer's wife famously wrote to Ford Australia asking for a vehicle that could do both: take them to church on Sundays and haul livestock during the week. The answer? The coupe utility. A blend of comfort and toughness. Car at the front, truck at the back. A mullet on wheels before mullets were even cool. But fast forward a few decades, and the Ute had grown into something far bigger than a farm tool. In the 1970s and 80s, Holden and Ford saw the potential to push boundaries. Utes started rolling off production lines that didn't just carry payload, they carried attitude. Holden had the Sandman, with its shag carpet interiors and panel van party vibes. Ford countered with tough XY and XB Utes, bringing muscle car energy to a trayback body. By the 1990s, the formula had evolved into something truly unique. Utes weren't just working vehicles anymore, they were identity statements. What you drove said who you were, and more importantly, what side you were on. You were either Holden Red or Ford Blue. There was no fence sitting, only rivalries, stickers, and engine noise. And so began the Golden Age. The Commodore Ute evolved from boxy and practical to sleek, sharp, and low-slung. It morphed into the SS, then into the HSV Maloo. Meanwhile, Ford fired back with the Falcon XR6 Turbo and the thumping XR8, and eventually the FPV Pursuit, blending GT car performance with Ute functionality. You could smoke a set of tires, tow your jet ski, and still rock up to work without missing a beat. This wasn't just evolution, it was revolution. Australia had built something no other country had done at scale, a culture around performance Utes. They became icons at summer nats, legends at burnout comps, and must-haves for young blokes who wanted something practical and mental. It was a uniquely Aussie obsession, because here, we didn't need 6-inch lifts or chrome bumpers to prove ourselves. We just needed rear-wheel drive, V8 grunt, and a wide-open road. You weren't just buying a car, you were pledging allegiance. Holden or Ford? It was tribal, it was loud, it was personal. This was more than just a Ute parked in the driveway. It was the rolling representation of your bloodline, your footy team, and your old man's garage. Arguments broke out over horsepower figures. Friendships were tested in burnout comps. And in every suburb and servo across the country, the badge on your bonnet said everything. Let's start with Holden's SS Ute, an Aussie street legend. Under the hood, a 6.0 LS2 V8 and later LS3, borrowed straight from America's Corvette DNA, but tuned for our roads, our rules. It had torque for days, that classic rear-wheel drive swagger, and the kind of grunt that turned tradies into weekend warriors. It looked mean too, bulging guards, aggressive stance, dual exhausts humming the national anthem of Aussie muscle, and it handled like a sports car, not a work truck. Meanwhile, Ford wasn't copping it lying down. Their XR8 Ute came loaded with a 5.4-litre Boss V8, a big thumping powerhouse that roared with intent. It had that signature quad headlight aggression, a more planted ride, and that unmistakable blue oval bark out the back. But then, the stakes changed, because HSV stepped in. And when the Maloo arrived, game. Over. The HSV Maloo R8 was Holden's declaration of war. It took everything the SS was, and dialed it to 11. LS3 engine. Over 317 kilowatts, massive brakes, quad exhausts with bimodal growl. It was a Ute with supercar specs and tray space. A Jekyll and Hyde mix of brute and finesse. Then came the Maloo GTS, and eventually the GTS RW1, which literally used the LS9 engine from a Corvette ZR1, 430 kilowatts, carbon brakes, magnetic ride control, the fastest production Ute in the world. But Ford wasn't waving the white flag. They had a weapon of their own, the FPV Pursuit. With 315 kilowatts under the bonnet, and FPV's race-tuned suspension, this wasn't a parts bin special. It was a thoroughbred, built for the track and the job site. It came with aggressive GT-inspired styling, hard-hitting torque, and a level of polish Ford fans had been screaming for. Later versions, like the Super Pursuit, gave you 6-speed manuals, limited-slip diffs, and that boss engine that just wanted to rev. Every new release pushed the envelope further. Lower, louder, faster, more power, more badge pride, more Monday morning bragging rights. It was a production arms race. Factory arms dealers turning everyday utes into weekend weapons. Because in Australia, your ute wasn't just for hauling gear, it was for hauling ass. You'd drive it to work in high-vis and be ripping skids at Eastern Creek by Saturday. Toolbox out, subwoofer in. And the back window? It either had a Holden Lion or a Ford Oval, and you didn't cross the line. And if that wasn't enough, we didn't just modify these utes, we raced them. Enter the V8 Ute Racing Series, a uniquely Australian brand of chaos that ran from 2001 to 2017 and turned tradie rigs into track missiles. Imagine this: lowered Commodore and Falcon utes, still rocking their traybacks, stripped out, caged up, and unleashed on circuits like Bathurst, Adelaide, and the Gold Coast. No traction control, no driver aids, just rear-wheel drive, a thumping V8, and the will to outbrake your mate into turn 1. It was Commodore versus Falcon, again. But this time at 200 km per hour, rubbing panels in front of thousands of screaming fans, door to door. Rear ends hanging out. One moment they're dragging down Conrod Straight. The next, they're 3 wide into the chase, trading more paint than a Bunnings warehouse. And that's the beauty of it. These weren't exotic cars. These were the same models you'd spot in a job site car park, now going toe-to-toe in full race trim, live on national television. It wasn't polished F1. It was Aussie battler motorsport, raw, loud, unpredictable. The V8 Ute Series became a fan favourite at events like the Adelaide 500, where half the crowd came just to watch the Utes go at it like a pub brawl on wheels. It was tribal. You wore your badge proudly, Holden red or Ford blue, and you screamed for your side. It was theatre, with flaring tempers, panel dents, and championship-deciding contact. It was very Australian. And when those Utes fired up in pit lane, the grandstands didn't sit down. They stood, beers in hand, ready for the carnage. Because when you mix race car energy with working class roots, you don't just get a category, you get a movement. But across the Pacific, things were getting bigger. The Ram 1500, Chevy Silverado, and Ford F-Series were packing turbo torque, massive bodies, and interiors nicer than your lounge room. For years, we scoffed. Too big, too expensive, too American. But as Aussie Utes disappeared, the Yank tanks started to look pretty tempting. Then it happened. 2016, Ford shuts down its Broadmeadows plant in Victoria. 2017, Holden pulls the plug on production at the Elizabeth factory in South Australia. 2020, the Holden badge, a symbol stitched into the fabric of Australian life for generations, is officially retired. Just like that, it was over. No more VFSS Commodores. No more XR6 turbos howling down suburban streets. No more factory-fresh Maloo rollouts. No more FPV dyno days. Just silence. Where V8s once roared and Aussie workers once built legends by hand. This wasn't just the death of a car model. This was the death of an era. A full-scale collapse of something uniquely Australian. A national identity forged in steel, sweat, rivalry, and revs. For decades, Australia had been one of the few countries that not only assembled cars, but engineered them for local conditions. From dirt roads to desert highways, Aussie cars were tough, rear-wheel drive warriors that laughed in the face of adversity and potholes. The Utes, in particular, were a cultural touchstone. Built here, driven here, raced here. Your granddad drove one, your dad modified one, and you probably did burnouts in one behind a factory in high school. And then just like that, it was gone. Production halted, thousands of jobs lost, tooling packed up, conveyor belts stopped cold, and the very factories that once gave us national icons were reduced to nothing more than ghost towns and real estate developments. People mourned, seriously. There were tears on the factory floors. Workers in high-vis lined up for final rollouts, clapping the last VF Commodore as it made its way through the plant. It was like watching your team play their final match, knowing the scoreboard doesn't matter, because the game is never coming back. And for the car community, it hit like a sledgehammer. All those Friday night cruises, Saturday morning Bunnings runs, and Sunday burnout comps, they suddenly became retro nostalgia, a YouTube memory, a garage queen, a number plate in a collector's vault. Enthusiasts started scrambling, buying up the last of the stock, hoarding parts and preserving utes like museum pieces. Prices skyrocketed. Maloo GTSRs started fetching 6, then 7 figures at auction. The FPV Pursuit became unicorn status, and even the humble SS got the respect it always deserved. But what we lost went beyond the cars. We lost the spirit of building something locally, with pride for our roads and our people. We lost the friendly rivalry that made Ford versus Holden more than marketing. It was our story. Because the Aussie car industry didn't just give us vehicles, it gave us identity. It gave us jobs, dreams, heroes, and horsepower. And in the end, it wasn't just a shutdown, it was a cultural funeral. And into that silence, the imports rolled in, loud, large, and ready to take the crown. With Holden and Ford out of the picture, a vacuum was left in the Aussie car market, and global automakers wasted no time filling it. First up, the Americans made their move. The Ram 1500, now remanufactured right here in Australia by Walkinshaw, roared onto the scene with Hemi V8s, plush interiors, and towing capacity that laughed at horse floats and caravans alike. Suddenly, what was once an oversized oddity became a status symbol in tradie circles. Dual cab, leather seats, 12-inch screens, and a tray that could fit your dirt bike and your ego. Next, the Chevrolet Silverado ZR2, a hulking brute, loaded with tech, lockers, suspension travel, and enough road presence to part traffic like Moses. Then came the F-150 Raptor, off-road royalty, factory long-travel suspension, turbocharged V6 or V8 Thunder, Baja ready, fully loaded. Suddenly, suburban school drop-offs looked more like Dakar rally checkpoints. And hot on their heels, the Toyota Tundra, set to join the right-hand drive party. Because if anyone knows how to dominate a utility category, it's Toyota. But it didn't stop with the Yanks. The Japanese stepped in too, and they weren't playing games. We're talking about the Hilux Rogue, Isuzu D-Max X-Terrain, and Nissan Navara Pro 4X Warrior. The Hilux Rogue got reworked suspension, wider tracks, a tough aesthetic makeover, and Toyota's bulletproof rep. The Navara Warrior, fettled by Aussie outfit Premcar, upped the game with beefier tyres, bash plates, and local tuning to suit our harshest terrains. The D-Max X-Terrain came in swinging with Apple CarPlay, radar cruise control, and a whole suite of safety tech. And it's built in Thailand, but tailored for our market. But you know what's missing? That raw, unfiltered Aussie soul. That cheeky burnout at knockoff time. That roar of a cammed LS echoing off a warehouse wall. That undeniable pride in saying, this was built right here. We've swapped tray-thumping V8s for terrain modes and touchscreen climate control. And while it's impressive, it's not the same. They're good, but they're not ours. We are growing True Blue Talk. We aim to deliver entertaining material, from our point of view, of course. So, if we're ticking that box, tick ours with a like and subscribe, and any comments you would like us to cover or share. So, let's call it America. They brought the size, the luxury, and the torque. Trucks that tow yachts, conquer dunes, and roll over speed bumps like pebbles. They've got ventilated seats, 14-speaker sound systems, and enough chrome to blind you at sunrise. But Australia, we made the ute cool. We didn't just build workhorses, we bred street fighters. Machines born in Broadmeadows and Elizabeth. V8s with attitude. Rear-drive rebels with no traction control and no chill. Utes that snarled at the lights, barked at the track, and left their mark in long, smoky strips across Bunnings car parks and industrial estates. We turned tool carriers into tire-shredding legends. We gave the world the Maloo, the world's fastest production ute. We gave them the FPV Pursuit, a track-tuned tow rig with blue oval bravado. We gave them HDT specials signed off by Brocky himself. And most importantly, we gave ourselves something to believe in, because these weren't just cars, they were statements. The badge on the back window wasn't just branding, it was a battle flag. Red versus blue, Ford versus Holden, your dad's ute versus your best mates. Every burnout comp, every backstreet drag, every passionate pub argument. It wasn't about torque specs, it was about tribe. And sure, the factories are quiet now. The showrooms are filled with imports, and the era of Aussie-made utes has shifted into the rearview. But legends don't fade, they echo. In every cammed V8, you hear rumbling through a Sunday cruise. In every Maloo still prowling the streets. In every young revhead restoring an old XR8 with their old man in the shed. It's still alive, because you don't just drive an Aussie ute, you live it. And even if America made it bigger, Australia made it better. So next time you see a lifted Ram or Silverado crawling through a cafe strip, remember what came before it.